Islam, Islam, Islam. Give all thanks and perfect praises unto Allah. Highest honors to His holy prophet. Honors to the forerunner. Honors to all the elders and pages carrying the spirit of the prophet. And honors to our esteemed guest today, the mastermind, the Moorish Mastermind, Brother Shemel. It's an honor to have you on the show, brother man. I thank you for coming through and being willing to share your wisdom and give us your presence. Um, so let's start. Let's get right into it. As we know, we got Brother Shemel. I would like to ask Brother Shemel to introduce himself and give us a little bit about yourself, brother man.
Islam, or first, I was giving all praise to Allah. I give honors to all true and divine prophets. I give honors to our Prophet Noble Ali, who founded the Moorish Science Temple of America for the purpose of uplifting fallen humanity. I give honors to the forerunner Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who paved the way for the Prophet. Giving honors to all faithful members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, past, present, and future. Because when man gives honors to man, he gives honors to Allah. Islam. I first want to say special honors to you, brother. It's an honor to be here. Gratitude. I love the work that you're doing. I see great things ahead for this podcast. And just to give an introduction to myself, my name is Brother Shemel. I am a member of Moorish Science Temple of America. My temple is in Durham, North Carolina. I am under the leadership of my Grand Sheikh, my Grand Governor, Robert Stonell in North Carolina, who also studied directly under the late Jerome Graham Bay of Baltimore. So I also studied under him as well while in his last days in the flesh. So, just give a background of me. I'm originally from New York, born and raised, born in New York City in Queens, raised out in Long Island. And my introduction, as I've said, at different times, my introduction to this path came around the age of 14 or so. Certain things happened. I studied. I was always inquisitive. I was always wanted to know about God and man's relationship, my relationship to God. I knew that there was different religions, different beliefs, and growing up in a Christian background, in the church, and actually both my parents were of two different denominations that eventually caused a split in the marriage. But my father, he was apostolic, and my mother was Baptist. So, of course, as a young person, I got baptized in the Baptist church, but then I also went to the Apostolic Church, which is similar to Pentecostal, Holy Roller, where I would see people catch the Holy Ghost and all that stuff. A lot of religious debates were in my family at the table. And I just wanted to know, with all these different religions, I knew that there was a greater power, a greater source, but I wanted to know what was the true way. So fast forward around 14, a couple of things happened. I was introduced by way of my brother to these books. He became a Rastafarian at that time, but he had these books called the Pamphlets of Peace. And those books were produced by an organization called the Ansar Allah Community, also known as Nubian Islamic Hebrews. The man who was the leader at the time was a man by the name of Imam Isa, Imam Isa. And when I read those books, it answered a lot of questions. Because I couldn't get questions. I would ask questions in a Sunday school, couldn't get answers to them. And this is at a young age.
Yes, sir.
I was exposed. They had the books and they had these tapes called the Childlike tapes. And these Childlike tapes, back in the day, give my age, this was when there was cassette. So these tapes had the question and answer classes. Come to find out, they had question and answer classes in Brooklyn, in Bushwick, Brooklyn, at a place called Hall of Knowledge. So eventually, I went there. I was introduced. I was given an introduction. There was a brother who not lived in Long Island, but he sold the books in Long Island. Brother by the name at the time Ayub, older brother, and he would give me books, taught me a lot, and eventually, fast forward, he drove me to Brooklyn for me to take my shahada. And I took my shahada at the age of 15. Also, around that time, at 14, I was exposed. I was reading a lot of books on our history, what they would call Black history books, African history books. I had the opportunity to read, to go to a lecture. This lecture was taught by two great historians who now became part of the ancestors, Dr. Dr. Yosef Ben Jakanan, and also Dr. John Henry Clark. And so I saw them, heard them speak. It's at Hofstra University in Long Island. And as a 14-year-old young man growing up, to hear men have that sort of intelligence, to speak with that sort of confidence and authority based on what they knew, in addition to what I was already reading with these books by the Ansar Allah community, I knew that I was going to teach in some capacity. I actually wanted to be a professor. But, Allah had it where I go a different path, long story short. But I eventually joined the Ansar Allah community. And as part of that, I joined different spiritual orders. The first one being the Sons of the Green Light, which they had, which was a Sufi order. And then they went, the organization went through the various transformations in different, what they would call different schools of learning. So that became, from that, then it became what the Ancient Mystic Order of Melchizedek, which then transitioned on into the Ancient Egyptian Order, things of that nature. But the Sufi teachings were always the most, I would say, the most impactful to me for a number of reasons. But fast forward, I ended up moving down south. I helped open up several bookstores. They were called, I'm trying to think, Holy Tabernacle bookstores at the time, because the organization used the term Holy Tabernacle Ministries. I opened up several bookstores in Louisiana. I've been in Louisiana, Alabama, different other places. Fast forward around 2008, I left from Alabama to North Carolina. North Carolina is where my family on my father's side is. So I was already familiar with North Carolina because I would go down here every summer. My grandfather had a farm and everything. But I never thought in my mind I would be in North Carolina as a place to live. But it was destined that I come here. And this is the place where Prophet Noble Drew Ali was born. Now, the kind of backtrack, I first heard about Prophet Noble Drew Ali through the books of Imam Isa, the book entitled Who is Noble Drew Ali? Who was Noble Drew Ali? That was the title of the book. And I always say this, I learned of him, but I didn't know what he taught. And it wasn't until later on when I came to North Carolina and decided that I was going to pursue learning about this Moorish information, because at that time, you talking 2008, of course, Dr. York at this time, Dr. Malachi York, who's Imam Isa, had been locked up. The land had been taken away. A lot of things had transpired. So I was just at this space where I was trying to understand like how that could be, especially since right before then, he was putting out information. He put out a book called Let's Set the Record Straight. And in Let's Set the Record Straight, he talked about Noble Drew Ali, but he also talked about the Moors in the context of nationality, in terms of proclaiming nationality. He didn't really go into it, but he talked about being indigenous to this land, the autonomy and stuff, because you got to remember at that time, around the time where he put that book out, he was researching the information on the Washita. And I was in Louisiana when he was doing that. He was actually trying to get in contact with the Empress of the Washita at the time. And there was a brother by the name of Ahmad, who was finally able to get a hold of that book called Return of the Ancient Ones. So fast forward, I'm trying to say, well, okay, we're supposed to have our own, we're supposed to be independent and self-sufficient and all this stuff. And, these Europeans take our stuff, what's up? I looked into the Washita. I actually, did some studying on them, contacted the organization where they had a headquarters at the time in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, this is around 2008, 2009. Got on some of the conference calls where her son, the Empress' son, Frederick, Joe, he was on there and stuff like that. But it just didn't, somehow, some way, it just didn't grab me. Again, I'm struggling, trying to find my way. And Mo, cut me off because if I'm
no, brother man, keep going, brother man. This what we want to know. This is so we can understand the mastermind. Let's keep going, brother man.
So yeah, I'm just trying to figure all this out. This Moorish thing, this thing about nationality, and the fact that the one thing I remembered when I was reading the books that I was reading and hearing the information is that the term Moor is something that we were when we were in power. That's the last title that we were recognized by. So that always stuck with me. So I basically, long story short, I fumbled through a lot of different information with different Moorish groups. Praise Allah, there was a brother in North Carolina by the name of Rahim Shamori Bey, an older brother, and he told me that there was a temple. Now, at the time, I didn't live anywhere near Durham. I lived in a place called, in North Carolina, at this time, Jacksonville, North Carolina. If anybody knows about that, that's where...
I know where Jacksonville is.
Camp Lejeune is at. The Marines. So I met the brother, talked to the brother, and he told me about the temple. Basically got me connected with there. I went there. I eventually went there because me and my wife, by this time, we married. It was around 2012, and we're living in Raleigh. And in fact, I went from Jacksonville, we got married, went to Raleigh, moved to Raleigh, and I had an opportunity to go to a class that was holding at a library. in Durham, here in Durham. And pretty much the rest was history. I got a chance to talk to Brother Robert Stonell, talk to the other Moors. And the one thing that kind of stuck with me is recognizing that this was a place where I could grow, and in that me and my wife could really feel at home. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing I'm keen on is energy. I've always been keen on energy, and kind of just to connect with it. Part of my spiritual path is based on certain experience I've had as a child. Um, so I've always felt like I didn't fit. So all spiritual people, kind of know this. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't fit in this, whatever you want to call the matrix or what have you. And so you're always trying to seek like minds, kindred spirits, things of that nature. And even now, where I'm at, and now in the temple, I still have those moments. But this felt the most at home. This felt the most as family as there is. So the energy was right here. You know what I'm saying? And so I said, okay, well, let me do this. Let me take what I've learned, because I learned a lot of. I feel that I learned a lot. I learned how to teach. I learned how to communicate, because as an Ansar, one of the things you recognize is that when you're out, they call it propagating, right? And they begin to say, the dawa, right? When you're out there in New York City, you're talking to a lot of people in any given day, right? And you have to learn people's personalities really quick. You have to know who to say what to at any time, and try to be as adaptable as possible, right? That's what I learned, and I became good at it. With the grace of Allah, I became very good at it in teaching, learning to listen to people, learning how to ask the right questions, and get people engaged. So I felt that with what I learned about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, learning, because the more I read about the Prophet, the more I was like, why don't enough, why don't people know about him? But then I recognized why people don't know about him. Right. Kind of the best kept secret, because what he brought is so powerful. Not was, but is so powerful.
Yes, sir.
That it makes sense that there were people in place to try to suppress this.
Yes, sir.
And in my experience, since I've been a member of this temple, I've joined in 2013. So I'm going on in April, in the end of April, 11 years officially as a member. And I never left. And I've experienced a lot. I truly saw the Prophet's teachings at work in real time, in different scenarios, on a national side and on a divine side, on all aspects of it. So, I felt like I would do my best, and I'm still doing my best to be an asset to this movement, because I recognize how important this movement is. So that's my story. That's my journey.
And you have a beautiful one, brother. Allow me to say that.
Gratitude.
You have a beautiful one, brother, man. I share a similar journey, brother, man. I started early. My first step was taking Shahada at the age of 16.
Praise Allah.
And I went through quite a few phases, but however, one thing that I always understood is that it was something innately inclined in me that was aware of the oneness of truth.
Yes.
And for some reason, it was always somewhat apparent to me, though, as the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America teaches us, the clearest of human knowledge is what? But blindness and folly.
Folly, yeah.
I always was a doubter of my own conclusions. A wise man doubteth often and change his mind, while a fool is absent and knows everything except his own ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a similar path, and that was refreshing to hear, because what it does tell me is that many of us who come this direction have had that similar path.
Yes, sir.
And that, the beauty of being able to connect through experience is one of the strongest connections, as we see in many cases, especially in society. We learn that, pain connects people,
Yes.
and also that's just an experience within itself, but yet and still, like experiences connect people.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say, yeah, I had a like experience, and I understand exactly where you're coming from, and it's a beautiful journey, man. And I pray that Allah continue to guide and protect you, and grant you more knowledge and more wisdom and more understanding as you walk this path, beloved.
Gratitude.
Um, so I want to, as we know, you are author too, brother, man.
Yes, sir.
You published a few books. Um, Two that I have read is What is the Higher Self?
Yeah.
And Who is the Elohim?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So, and being that you wrote such that, and I've read both, they're both dynamic pieces of work. Allow me to tell you that.
Thank you.
They'll always be a part of my treasures in my library, just to let you know, brother, man. And I look forward to ordering more. Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
In the Islamic diaspora, our teachings are very much unique in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject of the higher self and the topic of what will be known in Sufi circles, which is tasawwuf, the oneness of Allah and man,
yes,
is a very, 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 it's an esoteric conversation, but yet and still it's a sensitive conversation in the Islamic world because of so many different perspectives and angles of viewing the Islamic doctrine.
Yes.
So, from your perspective, how could you help ones understand who may not be Moorish Americans,
Mm-hmm.
who may not, be within the concept of the inner life? How would you even go about attempting to bring them into the knowledge of the higher self, and how this entails in our Islamic journey?
That's a great question, brother. Because the reason why it's so great is because ultimately there has to be the experience.
Yes, sir.
Of it has to be the experience of you being one with Allah, or feeling the connection of the oneness with Allah. What I've strived to do by way of my books, as you mentioned, by way of the classes that I've taught and things of that nature, is I've strived to see where people are at and use and dig into that to get to the esoteric essences of what they believe. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is that, okay, when I started to become a teacher, even before I came into the Moorish Science Temple of America, and I taught classes, one thing that was instilled in us is we have to use whatever books that you're using. In other words, if you're a Christian and your book of choice and your book that you go to as the source of your divine wisdom or inspiration is the Bible, it's not really going to work if I go into the Quran. Though I can show you where the Quran and the Bible connect, I have to be able to know how to go into your book and be able to speak to the same thing. It's just in your book, right? So that's what I've strived to do in my work. So first thing is I have to know where your mindset is at. Most people, even the ones who say they're not overly religious, they've been products of some form of indoctrination that where the Bible is involved.
Right, exactly.
No.
Right, exactly.
So what if I recognize that, then I gradually try to speak to certain things, because the first thing is person gonna say, well, Jesus, that's the one thing. Well, Jesus died for our sins. I believe in Jesus. I said, well, what did Jesus say? Right? That's the first question to ask. Well, what did Jesus say? What did Jesus teach? Because what's so beautiful about what the prophet brought us is that he says in the Holy Quran and Moorish Science Temple of America, he says, these lessons are for all those who love Jesus.
Yes, sir.
That's a powerful statement. That means he's calling you, he's calling your bluff. He's like, basically, oh, you love Jesus? To what Jesus said, there's 18 missing years in Jesus' life. Don't you want to know about that? Just from that approach, that was so impactful. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how, like, you getting into the psychology of one who wants to be all in the favor of Jesus. So I would go by that. What did Jesus teach? Most of the time you find out, brother, that they don't know as much about Jesus as you know. You know what I'm saying? They really don't know.
And then the fact that we have 18 missing years of Jesus' life, work, and teachings. And I think, when we look at the doctrine of Christianity, which commonly, I know you heard it, I've heard it, everybody in our community have heard it, that we should have a personal relationship with God, or a personal relationship with this individual or this entity or this particular archetype that we know as Jesus Christ, right?
Yes.
And I feel like one of the most, and I can't say this encapsulates the total understanding of it, but what I would say, it would be very difficult to gain a personal relationship with an individual or an entity or an archetype that you have no knowledge of, or very limited knowledge of. So therefore, the 18 missing years of Jesus' life, works, and teachings would very much would give one a clear picture of who and what he was and what he actually demonstrated. And the beautiful thing that I see about that, especially in this particular drawing, is that, we look at the 18 missing years of Jesus's life, right?
Right.
However, let's look at John the Baptist that came before him, who was considered to be purity, or to pave the way for the coming of love made manifest so men could comprehend, right?
Yes.
So we look at the 18 missing years of Jesus's life, but how long did John wrought in the temple?
18 years.
18 years.
Yes, sir.
So, this is another aspect of our doctrine and theological teachings of our ability to apply mathematical, or scientific methodology to the faith. So I pardon me for breaking your wisdom, brother.
No, Mo.
So I
appreciate you adding on to that. Yeah, that 18 years is very powerful.
Yes, sir.
It's very powerful. And all of the numbers that are within the Bible. That goes into another aspect of all those numbers: 18, 12, 7, 3. You catch what I'm saying?
Yes,
all
sir.
those is all those are key factors in the code of the spirituality of us. It really is, and that gets into a whole deeper conversation. But of course, you have to bring them to that level.
Yes,
And
sir.
what I would say is, and just going back to that, the question of how do you get them to get to think in the concept of the higher self. That question, what did Jesus say? Jesus said, "Is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods."
Mm.
Right. He
Mm.
also said that the kingdom of heaven is in man.
Mm.
So you got to ask yourself the question: if Jesus said that you are God, and he said that the kingdom of heaven is in you, what does that mean? Right? What does it mean to be born again? And he didn't say be born again by virtue of just being baptized and saying that you're born again. A birth denotes a new beginning. And then notes he said, unless you're like a child, you can't enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Mm.
Right. And
Mm.
shameless plug, I just wrote a book called Meet Your Inner Child. So
Beautiful.
and it speaks to that, because you recognize that the childlike nature is the nature that is most pure before the
Ooh.
contaminations of the world. You just spoke to John in purity,
Yes, sir.
you know. So what I'm saying is basically when we speak to our brothers and sisters, there are many different places in the Bible where we can tap into those esoteric teachings and kind of pull it out and say, well, hey, look, have you thought about this? Because one thing we know for sure is that your pastor is not teaching that.
No, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
Uh,
sir.
they're not. And, you know, as controversial as Reverend Ike was, he
One of
taught
them.
he taught some serious, powerful spiritual teachings that he just pulled out from the Bible. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So with that being said, it's like it's there. We
Yes,
just
sir.
have to be able to have our brothers and sisters see it for themselves. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
you just have, like, look, it's in your Bible. You read it. It's not my word. This is Jesus' word. This is the word that you say is the word of God. And you take that from there, and then you can kind of gradually connect everything. Because that's what it was for me. You know, when I first learned about Islam, I had to hear certain things. I had to hear certain things be related to from the Bible standpoint before I can say I could totally accept this book that you say came from a man named Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad. I had to be able to see the connection, because all I knew prior to that was, you know, Adam, Noah, Abraham,
Yes.
Moses, Jesus. You know, I know that, you know, but you're giving me something totally new. So how does this connect? And
Mm.
once you see the connection, then you can kind of work with that. And I think the prophet was brilliant in being able to connect that. So praise Allah.
Praise Allah. That's a beautiful. You know that. Of course, you just demonstrated, beloved. Um, and it's very paramount, and it's very intricate that we meet people where they are,
Yes.
because in many instances, in the exchange of information or the exchange of what we would consider divine wisdom, um, and which wisdom is divine in and of itself, because wisdom speaks from the highest plane of spirit life. So that's another thing, being able to distinguish or discern what's wisdom and what's not. But that's a whole nother conversation. However, to be able to meet a person where they are shows your level of wisdom and understanding. Because I noticed that in certain circles and conscious circles, ones love to look for the most, what I say, so-called deep um explanations or demonstrations about particular topics, when in actuality the depth of a particular degree is found in its simplicity.
Yes.
And that was one thing that the Prophet Noble Jew Ali did in the most brilliant of forms, in a way that I feel like only a prophet is able to do.
Yes.
And the Prophet Noble Jew Ali said he Americanized the Oriental ideal of Islam.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deprecate our us being Americans in a way to make it seem as if we're dumb. But however, we have to look at it from a Quranic perspective. Is that, a nation is raised, a prophet is raised amongst every nation, speaking their language that they may know to shun the devil, praise Allah, and shun the devil, Islam.
Islam.
So, therefore, he had to bring it to us in this Americanized way. Therefore, we could digest it properly because of the certain situations, states, and conditions, and the era and time in which we were in at a certain particular point in time. We know that has a lot to do with the level of expansion of consciousness at a particular point in time. So things have to be ushered in and given to a people in a particular way that they'll be able to digest it. So, with that being said, now to, and this is a big, and this question is big. I mean, will probably be controversial, especially in the Islamic topic, with the ideals that a lot of our brothers and sisters who are in the Islamic diaspora hold on to. And one being, um, to not take partners with Allah, right? And then we get into the concept that we have within our Moorish teachings of the Elohim, right?
Yes.
Who
Yes.
we consider, and we've demonstrated that is the seven creative spirits, or the seven eyes of Allah, who created everything that is, was, or ever more to be, right?
Yes.
However, in the Islamic diaspora, and according to, and I don't even like to call it orthodoxy, but I'll call it that for the sake of conversation at this particular
Yes.
point. So in this particular orthodox ideal or orthodox perspective, the the perception of an Elohim, the seven creative spirits, or the seven eyes of Allah, in many instances and in many Islamic schools, will be considered shirk, because it would be taking on partners with Allah, so they would say. Could you demonstrate to us
Yes.
who the Elohim is,
Yes.
and how it is within, or and not in violation of the Islamic doctrine?
Okay. Okay. I'm glad you asked that question.
Yes,
Um,
praise Allah.
so first, we teach in the Moorish Science Temple of America that when the question is asked, who is Elohim? The answer is given. Elohim is the seven creative spirits that created everything that ever was, is, and never more to be. Right? Now, that being said, if you were to say that to what they would call an Orthodox Muslim, like you said, they would say that would be shirk, right? Just off face value, just off hearing it, because clearly only Allah is al Khaliq, the creator, right?
Right.
So, based on that context. However, and I mentioned this in my book, so I gotta go back into the book. So,
Please do, brother man.
in the book, and I want to be able to pull from it, because when I wrote the book, that was one of the things that I wanted to explore and I wanted to get into, is that the connection between what we have with Elohim, which you find in the Bible, which is actually the first word in Hebrew that's translated to God. So in the beginning, where in the Bible where it says, "In the beginning God created," is Barashif Elohim. So the first word that's used for God is Elohim. So I had to get into the language. I had to get into the language in order to make it clear. So that being said, I'm just going to read a passage here where the question is asked, since Elohim is plural, what is the singular form of the word Elohim? And the answer is the singular feminine form of the word Elohim is the word Eloah. This Hebrew word is found in the book of Job 41 times. From the word you get in Arab, from this word you get the Arabic word Allah, which is also in a singular feminine form. Because I remember in Arabic and Hebrew, they have feminine and masculine words, right?
Yes, sir.
So the great Quran of Muhammad, Al-Quran, uses Aliha as the plural form of Ilah for pagan gods. It occasionally uses Allahumma, which translates as O Allah, as opposed to Ya Allah, Allah singular. Okay, so the exact equivalent of Elohim would be Elohim, though it's rarely utilized in Arabic vernacular. The word Allahumma appears 5 times in 5 verses in the Great Quran of Muhammad. And then I go into those verses. But one of the things I point out is that you'll find certain verses in the Quran where it says we, Muhammad, we, right? We are nearer to you than your jugular vein. It's not singular. So, and it'll even say we created. You catch what I'm saying? So my question would be is how do you explain in the Quran of Mecca, the Quran of Muhammad that was revealed to Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, how do you explain that? If Allah is just one, right? Allah is one, Allahu Ahad, and to say that there's another creator or there's a group of creators is shirk. How do you explain that? You see what I'm saying? So basically, I wanted to expose that, and my point of it is that if what we're saying is Moorish American Muslim is wrong, then you should be able to clearly explain what we find in the Quran when it says those things, not only in English but in Arabic, because we're not stupid. We're not the stupid Negroes anymore. We can study. We're in the age of information.
Right.
So we clearly look these things up and find this to be true. That's all we're saying. And what we find it to be is that this concept of Elohim, this concept of this divine counsel, which are really expressions of the one anyway.
Right, exactly.
You find what I'm saying? Once you recognize that, it's not a conflict. It's not a conflict. But dogma and those man-made ideology to control this way of life, which is in its pristine purity, because what Prophet taught us in the Moorish literature is that Islam is a simple faith, right? But then you got to put in this hadith, that hadith, this Sharia law, and all these other things, and this Malana and this person, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to go, and then it splits up, and then it becomes what, the 70 plus 73 or so different sects that exist, because all about ego, right? Truth is but one. The doubts are thy own raising. So that's what it comes to be. It becomes the environment of doubt. You know what I'm saying? If I can introduce the doubt in what is clear and evident, then I can kind of get people to sway a certain way. But to that, I just say, Islam and peace. I just try to keep it in those principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Because the reality of it is, brother, everybody won't agree with you. And even we as brothers and sisters, if we don't agree with each other, that shouldn't override those principles and how we do it, because we have to live this life, and we are all striving to raise back to be one with Allah. So with that,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So in that discussion, right, I would ask this question because when, as I said, I took Shahada at 16, so I'm 43 now. So, I've been in tune with that particular doctrine for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, which is commonly spoken about is the 99 attributes of Allah, right?
Yes.
And we know these particular attributes. Attributes are characteristics. Attributes are actually powers.
Yes.
Right. So not only does Allah have 77 creative spirits or creative powers, or 7 of them, He has 99.
Right.
And we can say that's innumerable because, we see different expressions of these particular qualities being expressed all throughout different nations. However, we have these 7, right? And in many Islamic circles, what they don't understand is that these powers proceed directly from Allah and on the expressions of Allah.
Yes.
Therefore, in the manner in which Allah makes Himself known within His creation. So, I think, in them understanding our perception of that particular degree is paramount because, we understand that in the realm of Allah, there is no duality.
Correct.
There is no duality. There's no separation between the observer and the thing observed, right?
Correct.
Or the creator or the thing created, or the creator or the thought. Islam. However, when we come into this dense reality and start the vibrations or the energy or the consciousness begin to vibrate slower, and we get into this denser reality, we understand that these expressions become in polar senses or senses of duality, right?
Yes.
And when we hear the statement that is spoken in the Arabic, like Kul Allahu Ahad, Allah is someone, Lam Yulad wa Lam Yulad wa Lam Yakul lahu Kufuwan Ahad. That is to say that He, Allah, is one, the only, the Allah, the absolute. He begets not, nor is He begotten, and there is none like unto Him. And that's a very true statement.
Yes.
We couldn't disagree with that. But however, it's the particular perception and understanding of that particular degree that seems to call a division. But the Holy Prophet Noble Jewel, he taught us about religious controversy. He taught us about how every nation sees Allah. And and praise be to Allah, alhamdulillah, that we've been given, a pristine, as you said, and I would say and add this word, sublime
Yes.
degree or perception of the sacred text. So I think that was that book, you know, who is the Elohim, is a very, very, very in-depth body of work that you produced. And I think, you know, though you were very elaborate in your work, I still think it's more room for you to come in and write a part two. And I would definitely enjoy having a part two, because we also know that as students first, you know,
Yeah.
yes, we are teachers. Myself, yourself, you being the Sheik in the Moorish Science Temple of America, myself being the Sheik as well, we're teachers. However, one thing that we understand is that the greatest teacher, or the best teacher, was a great student, and we know that we're forever students. And I know your wisdom has grown and continues to grow and expand. Your consciousness continues to expand as you continue to contemplate on your works, because I know you just didn't write it right there, write it, and then stop contemplating about this dynamic,
Oh no. Oh
um,
no.
truth. Um, so I would like to ask, and you also said about the state of the child,
Yes, sir.
about the state of the child, and you know that one has to be like a child to enter the kingdom.
Yes.
Now, and we understand that in the physical manifest about the purest human being that you're going to set your eyes on is a child, because they come in the world perfect and not and contrary to, you know, the Christian theology. And I'm not speaking in a condescending manner, but we do have to draw the line in certain conversations. Is that, you know, Islam, we accept that man was born in perfection,
Mm-hmm.
that he wasn't born in sin, you
Right.
know. So with that being said, and the child representing this state of perfection or this state of purity, you know, we live in a society that loves to say, "I'm a grown man,"
Yeah.
or "I'm a grown woman."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? From your perspective, what does it mean to be a grown woman or a grown man, but still to be an adult or mature human being, but still live in that particular state of the
Mm-hmm.
child?
Great question. And before I answer that question, brother, if I may,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
just go back to the because what you said brought my mind to this topic when we were speaking about the Elohim and Allah being one.
Yes, sir.
An analogy, a parallel you can use is light. We
Mm,
recognize that Allah is a light. Allahu Nuru Samawati wal Ard, right? Is the light of the heavens and the earth.
alhamdulillah.
So light, when we think of light, we think usually of white light.
Mm,
White light can go through a prism and be refracted into 7 colors.
mm,
So, but those 7 colors of light are all part work in conjunction now, all part of the one.
mm,
Thing that I'm saying is that what light had to do was go through the medium in order for there to be a manifest.
mm,
If you know what I'm saying, because so even when we read what is it? Is it chapter 11 that speaks about the trial in the law? And trial in the law breathe forth
right, exactly. Right, exactly.
7 spirits.
That's when Jesus was speaking with Barato Arabo.
Yes.
Yes.
So that triune, and triune means 3 in 1. And so from the 1 to the 3 to the 7. Again, these are all key numbers, and they all deal with frequencies
Mm,
that when you get into your spiritual practices, it all makes sense because it all relates. You see it in every aspect of nature. It's
mm,
not it's not just a thing that is just out there random by itself. It's not a random thing that you see 3, even when they say 3 is the magic number or lucky number 7. It's not random. It's because of frequencies that must take place. So I wanted to say that. to your point about how the Elohim is and its importance of why it's 7 creative spirits. You know what I'm saying? But yet being breathed forth from the one, or being an extension of the one. So to follow back to your question that you just asked about being a grown man and being a grown woman, but still having the mind of a child. So they're taking it back to what Jesus said. And let me just read this. In the Moorish Holy Quran, it says, the piety of a child is sweeter than the incense of Persia, offering to the sun. Yea, more delicious than odors wafted from a field of Arabian spices of western gales. That's chapter 24, verse 3. Right? So the piety of a child, to be pious, to have that inclination to yearn for God, to yearn to please God, right? Some people translate piety as being religious, to be pious or religious. But remember, religion, in some definitions, is the relationship between man and divinity. So a piety of a child is always looking to please one who they see as the source of their protection, of their guidance, of their nurturing, right? So they want to please the parents. There's a natural inclination. There's a natural inclination of a child to want to be happy. A child doesn't want to complain. You get what I'm saying? They don't want to complain. Even if they cranky and they cry, that's not what they want.
Right.
They don't live a life looking to see what I can complain about. Oh, Trump this, or this person, I don't like this. They don't operate in that perspective, from that scope. They always want to be explorers. They're always open to new things because life is new for them. Right? So in having that childlike nature, or they say in the Bible, be born again, you have to be open to that spiritual world. You truly have to be open to that spiritual world, because it's a new world, yet it's an old world.
The eternal world.
It's the old world from which you once were, but it's new to you now because you lost consciousness of that coming into this plane of manifest. So now you have to reintroduce yourself to these experiences and recognize that that's you. You know what I'm saying? You catch what I'm saying? It's returning home in its very essence. So that's the beauty of being a child, because as having the child mind in that context, because having the child mind, not from the standpoint of making childish decisions or being immature, but from the perspective of being able to embrace life with love, with a certain of acceptance and lack of prejudice and judgment that we tend to have as adults. Because you have to do that. You have to be able to do that in the spiritual realm, because in the spiritual realm, there's going to be experiences and things that are going to shake your paradigm. It's not going to fit. It's not supposed to. We're going here learning the lessons of life, right? In order to prepare us to be able to let this go. You have to be able to let go of the plane of manifest. And even eventually you have to let go of the plane of soul. But with all that you learn, a child is learning. That's one thing about a child. The child is learning. Even if they're not in the classroom, their life is the world, everything around them.
Right.
You always see a child, they always picking up something, doing something. It's learning. So we have to be in that state of mind in order to truly grow in that knowledge, wisdom, that understanding, that divine, back to the highest plane of life with Allah. And as we do that, we'll be engulfed in that divine love. How operates truly in divine love, and that's the beautiful thing about it. And I that's what I yearn and pray for, that I get to embody and share with everyone.
Praise Allah. Praise Allah.
So,
That's profound, brother man.
praise Allah.
Yes, sir. Wow. I'm gonna make sure we get this that link out to the people where they can get that book, all three of these books that we've mentioned thus far.
Yes, sir.
Because I know it's an incredible contribution to the enlightenment and the education of our people, and I think that us especially as Moorish American Muslims, I think we most definitely need to plug and continue to promote all Moorish American authors who are striving to change, the narrative that has been that has replaced the truth,
Yes, sir.
and I think that's something that us as more myself being an author, you being an author, I think that's something that we should do as in the bond of being authors. Period. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? And understanding the necessity of this particular information getting to the world of those who would believe and those who don't know. On to another subject. I'm very familiar with you, brother. You my brother,
Absolutely.
and I've seen you speak on several occasions about the science of Sufism,
Yes, sir.
and myself being a member of a Sufi order, I'm a member of the Moorish order, founded
Praise
by
Allah.
Sheikh Mahmoud Bamba out of Senegal, Barke Sheikh Mahmoud Bamba and Barke Sheikh Ibrahim. Could you give us, but and I asked this in a way because a lot of topics are controversial,
Yes.
because a lot, one thing that a lot of people do to preserve their identity, they tend to want to separate themselves from others. And I'm not saying that in that sense, in a sense of being, authentically you, that's a problem. But we're talking about taking things, raising our thoughts to infinite wisdom, meaning raising our thoughts beyond the confinement and the circumcision of this particular manifest world.
Yes, sir.
In your understanding, uh, in the concept of Sufism, which is also termed tasawwuf.
Absolutely.
Also, in an English translation, we know it would be the oneness
Yes.
of Allah. Could you touch on that philosophy as it pertains to the teachings of the Moorish Science, the teachings and the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America,
Yes, sir.
and how congruent our perception, our perspective of Allah and tasawwuf is?
Praise Allah. First, I want to say I want to give honors, not only for you asking the question, but I want to give honors to your Sufi order, in relationship to Sheikh Amadou Bamba. I don't know a lot, but what I have read and studied on that master is inspiring. I'm not a member of it, but I've thought long and hard about, and praise Allah that I now know personally a brother of that order. I've been wanting to converse with someone of the order, but I want to be able to answer your question, to give you my experience in my studies, what brought me to Sufism, in my yearning to not only study it but to practice it, in to the degree that I have in the time that I have. So again, as I mentioned earlier, I took my Shahada at 15 in the Ansar Allah community. So as a result, that leads to me finding out about the order that they started, Imam Isa started, which was called Sons of the Green Light. So he had these books in reference to that. I studied them. I did the practices. One of the things that not only drew me to Sufism, but allowed me to continue to appreciate Sufism is this recognition that Allah is not just some outside being in the sky.
Right.
You catch what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But yet, Allah is more than a man. When I say more than a man, because I'm saying that because, of course, I was also familiar with the teachings of the 5% nation, nations of gods and nerves, right? Where they say Allah is arm, leg, arm, head, right? So Allah is more than that. It's beyond that. But yet, Allah is not some spook. Recognizing through the practices, along with the constant salat, the dhikr, wazifa, all these different things that I would do, and I still do chants. Like I do chants, la ilaha illallah, huwa alazimu. I do a lot of chants. It's just part of me.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
it never left.
Right, exactly.
And so I've been able to tap into that vibration, that frequency through them chants. And so I recognize the power of that. And again, that also opened me up to looking into other esoteric orders. Even at one time, I was introduced to a Rosicrucian order at one time that I participated in. I'm no longer active in it, but the brother that you had on in the previous episode, the brother who talked about the cathedral of the soul.
Oh yeah, the brother Khalil Ali Allah, also known as Maliki Far. Yes, sir.
Yes, that brother right there. When he said it, I knew exactly what he was talking about because I've done the same. So I learned Sufism prepared me to truly live a spiritual life through practice, right? Not just through intellectualizing and reading and things of that nature. Like there's practices, there's spiritual practices that you do. In each spiritual practice you do, Islam in general, because the prayer, the salat, is a science and is a deep spiritual thing if you truly are into it.
Right.
Position of the rakat, like that is really deep. And again, your prayer beads, your dhikr, if you don't have prayer beads, you use your hands. All of that is important.
My favorite instrument. So my favorite instruments, brother.
Brother, I could share stories with you where, I kid you not, like I said, I've had some spiritual experiences where I recognize I was able to call on use the attributes of Allah, and it's done some things like if it just was impossible. And when I say impossible, not from the standpoint that it's hard to you can't really explain it.
Right, exactly.
And And even if I say somebody might dismiss it, somebody might say, "Ah, you exaggerating," but in real time, I did it, and it happened. And so, I let me continue. So,
It could get heavy. It could get heavy,
yeah,
brother.
it can get heavy. It can really get heavy, and if you haven't had that experience or something like it, it's hard to convey in a way where a person will get it.
Mm-hmm.
But in whatever practice you have, this is what I do know: there has to be sincerity.
Right. Right.
You can't do a spiritual practice for the sake of the practice and the expectation of what you think it will happen. You have to have a pure.
Mm.
That's where the purity of heart comes in,
Mm.
right? Because is like it says in the Quran: you take one step towards Allah, you take 10 towards you. There has to be a sincere. There has to be a sincere heart to allow Allah to work within you and through you, for you,
Right.
as you.
Right. As you. Yes,
You
sir.
understand?
Yes,
So
sir.
when I recognize this, and then fast forward, when I read the teachings, when I read this great work, the Holy
Yes,
Quran of
sir.
the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, when I read that work and I read about the higher self and studying the selves, the higher self and the lower self,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Allah and man are one, but man debased himself, right? You know, gratifying you know,
Lower self.
the lower self and
Right.
different things of that nature, recognizing belief, faith, and fruition.
Yes, sir.
Belief is what man thinks perhaps is true, right? Faith was what man knows is true.
Right.
And fruition is when man himself becomes the truth.
Right. Exactly.
And so um, belief is lost in faith. And then fruition, faith is lost.
But
So
what
there's
does that mean, brother Shemel? Before you go for that statement right there, because that's a very, I think, and sometimes misunderstood uh keys in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. From your perspective, what does it mean for your belief to be lost in faith and your faith to be lost in fruition?
yes, sir. That's a that is a question. That's a beautiful question. And because I'm so adamant about teaching that more. If I could teach that every holy day meeting, I would teach it.
Yes, sir.
Because because to your point, I think there are many of our brothers and sisters who still hold on to belief.
Mm.
They hold on to it. So a belief is important because it's your introduction.
Mm.
It's your introduction on the journey. It's your introduction to this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that allows you to grow and expand. Remember, we're building the temple of perfected man,
Yes, sir.
right? So you have to have a foundation, but that doesn't mean you just have the foundation and you don't build everything else to go up. You see what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly. Right.
So belief, the belief is if I tell you something, whatever it is, Prophet Noble Drew Ali came up giving us our nationality, divine creed, everything. If I give it to you, the moment when you first hear that and you accept it, that's belief. To put it in short, the
Yes, sir.
first moment you get it, for whatever reason, it sounded good, it made you feel good, or it just said, I heard something similar to this before, it confirmed something. But at that point, it's still belief, right? That's good.
Right.
You get to a point, you're supposed to get to a point where you know this is true, where there is nothing that can ever make you think otherwise, right? Now, you can doubt yourself. Like you talked about your own personal, where you at, your strengths and your weaknesses in this. But the information, these teachings that Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught, you have to know it. It can't be just something to say because it was written. You get what I'm saying? If you keep saying it and I'm saying this from the context of the Moorish Science Temple of America, if you keep saying it because it's a demonstration and it says it in the book, the prophet said, and that's how you know it's belief, because you keep referencing the prophet. No disrespect, but if I have to keep saying if I have to say every time the prophet said, study yourselves. If I have to say the prophet said it, then I'm relying on someone outside of me to verify that this is true.
In other words, that's why teachers used to tell us all the time, put it in your own words.
Put it in your own words.
Yes,
if
sir.
I'm able to say, study yourselves, and I know how it works, because I put it to the test. I've applied it of studying self, and I can tell you what is some of the things you may come across when you study yourself. But if I keep telling you, if I just say, oh, you study yourself, prophet says study yourselves, right? Study. I'm just being a parrot. I'm being a block of wood.
Right.
A pointer. You catch what I'm saying? That's belief. That's belief. And then, so you have to be able to let that go.
Yes, sir.
And then the next thing is the fruition. Fruition, the root word of fruition is fruit. You bear the fruit.
Produce.
What do you produce? That means when I see you, I see Allah. When I see you, I see the light. When I see you, I see the manifestations of these holy and divine teachings from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I can see the reflection, man. Sheikh 7 Islam Mel, I see the reflection of Prophet, because he embodies the teachings of the Prophet. And it don't even have to be a word you say. You catch what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It will be an aura that you bring. It will be a vibration that you bring. It will be how you carry yourself in your way, in your thoughts, words, and deeds. Everything you will move will be an embodiment of Allah working through you. And again, this has to be being connected with Allah. Right? We cannot overlook this part. Being one with Allah. The Prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in flesh, giving us that saving power so that we can take that and save ourselves and become one with Allah. It's not about being one with the Prophet in the context of me and Prophet, we like this. It can't be like, you know what I'm saying?
It can't be in a sense of personality worship.
A sense of personality, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It has to be, you know what? It's the same. It would be the same as if your father raised you right. He gave you all the jewels of wisdom. He said, and people know your father be, man, I see his father. When I see him, because that's how my father was. I was fortunate enough to have a father who was a deacon, a Christian deacon, and we argued all the time, but he had morals, he had compassion, he had a love, he always helped people, he had a level of patience, and he instilled that in me. So literally, when there's people who are around who know him, they say, oh man, you just like your father. You the spitting image of your father. You catch what I'm saying?
Yes,
that's what it should be. Now, I don't have to keep saying, yeah, I'm a dad, I'm a father's son. I'm a father. I ain't gotta say that.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So why we keep name dropping?
Right.
We will always give honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Always. And when I rise and give honors, I give honors to our Prophet.
Yes, sir.
However, once we get past that, who is Shemel? Who is Sheikh 7 Islam Mill?
Yes,
Who is
sir.
that man? Because you just telling me Prophet. Who are you?
Right,
What do you
exactly.
know? You catch what I'm saying?
Right,
Because Allah I should see Allah in you.
Right, exactly.
Not you speaking words of Allah written in a book. So that's something that, like you said, brother, that's so powerful. That question you posed, because that is the key. Once we figure that out as Moorish American Muslims, and really be able to let go of belief and not feel like we're disrespecting belief in doing so, because me letting go of the belief is not a disrespect to the belief. I honor the belief because belief is how I got here, but I don't have to stay there. You know what I'm saying? That's the first step. It's 3-step ladder. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And it's quite interesting that the Prophet was reported to have said, if I can get you Moors to
think.
And we know that belief is what man
thinks.
Perhaps is truth, right?
Yeah.
And when I look at that particular degree, and it speaks about belief being lost in faith, and faith being lost in fruition.
Yes.
I perceive that in a way that one becomes so refined that his belief, his faith, and what he is cannot be distinguishable.
Yes.
Because even in our current states, a lot of us, and even in my current state, and that's why I'm constantly working on myself, is that we tend to have beliefs that we have no experience about.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Therefore, there is no fruit of that belief, of what you're perhaps thinking. So once what we think has become in line with what is, you see, has become in line with what is, now your belief is predicated upon and is what is. Therefore, your character and how you express yourself and how you live, this particular truth is being emanated in your thoughts, words, acts, and deeds.
Yes.
You know, the expression of the Allah in man in the manifest world. Islam. So, because we have especially within the conscious community, we have ones who shun belief.
Yes.
However, what is a thought without thinking? You see, we're taught that faith without works is what? Dead. Yeah. I say a thought that you don't think and contemplate on, what is it?
Dead.
So it's like reading without contemplation and meditating upon what you're reading and only having the purpose of learning to parakeet it or parrot it or regurgitate it.
Right. Right.
So reading without contemplation is dead.
Absolutely.
And so that's how, and similarly, that's how, I view the concept of the 3-step ladder, because when we have to ask ourselves, a lot of people don't understand the ladder to be, a tool of ascension.
Yes.
But we're talking in the spiritual sciences that even the angels ascended and descended upon Jacob's ladder.
Yes.
Right. So we have to have the ability to ascend our thoughts to be raised to infinite wisdom, but yet and still have the ability to meet people, the common people, the occidental world where they are.
Yes.
Islam.
Islam.
And and I think, once we have, we gain a firm grasp and understanding of that 3-step ladder, it'll give us a better, it give us, enable us with ability to deal with our people
Yes.
right where they are.
Yes.
Because these differences in perspectives tends to create a wedge or a wall between some of the most influential and some of the most creative and highly potential individuals in the movement.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, that's a very, and that's gonna be my place of study for the week. 3-step,
Praise Allah.
yeah, that's my place of study, man. Because I like to give myself 7 days with certain jewels. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes, sir.
then it's gonna be a place of study. Um, tell me something. I see you speak about Brother Graham Bay,
Yes, sir.
and you post videos of the brother. I've watched a few, and I must say that Brother Graham Bay was a powerful brother. May Allah be pleased with him, and may he sail on smooth seas. Um, talk a little bit about Brother Graham Bay and how influential he was on your travel in the temple.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise Allah. I um I was honored. I'm truly honored to have studied under him, and I'll be the first to say I studied my depth of studying directly under him. When I mean directly under him, like going to personal classes, because there was times I went to Baltimore and he taught and things of that nature, is not as extensive as some other Moors. Um, I don't claim to have the most, like, the deepest mentorship by him, um, but we have had those moments where we talked one on one, and he shared with me things, and I'm truly honored of all the things that he taught me. My Grand Sheik, my Grand Governor Robert Stonell, is a person who can speak more in terms of experiences with him than I can. What I can say is that I learned, as much as I learned from him and learned about him and appreciated him, after he passed form a couple of years ago. Allah will show you things. And those videos that I uploaded, I didn't know existed until
Mm,
he passed form.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? So, and it literally was on a whim. Like, I was looking through something else in connection, um, pertaining to him on a search, and I came across those videos. Um, well, I came across the fact that he had those videos. Two of the videos, or three of the videos that I uploaded, I had to go out and search and purchase. Like,
mm,
there was a random um, site that was selling conscious DVDs. It's probably the only site, I can't even think of the name off top. I'm being honest with you, but this random site that had conscious DVDs, and they had a small section of DVDs that was dealing with Moors, and he had, I come to find out, he had 3 DVDs, and I was
mm.
like, oh snap, I got to go get it. So I paid for it, got them, was able to transfer it into MP4 and upload it, because I was like, we need to know this. The
Yes, sir.
I, um I've had conversations with certain Moors who would tell me, from Baltimore, who would tell me in so many words about how he was he was one of those Moors, and I think that's why I ended up um, being taught by him. He is one of those Moors that was very powerful in his knowledge, but he wasn't. part of the go along, get along gang. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes,
You know
sir.
what I'm saying? Respectfully, like he was a person, he was very much so adamant about what he taught. He learned, he studied under um, Sheikh Timothy Dingle Ill
Mm.
directly. He was a Sunday school teacher.
The bull, huh?
The bull, yeah, the Mo man, the man on the hill, the Mo on the hill.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
And so he told us stories about his experiences with him. He told us experience about his experiences with the Empress of the Washita,
Mm.
DC. He actually went down to Louisiana. He had took pictures. She told him about, and he would all tell the stories. Like she said, told him, said, Jerome, I want to take you to this place. She said, he would say, you know, in his voice, she took me to this place. It was a town called Thru, Louisiana. And then she showed him pictures of what she explained was supposedly the pictures of Noble Drew Ali. Those pictures eventually came out and circulated in certain websites and stuff. There's people saying that that's Noble Drew Ali and he's sitting with Farad Muhammad, you know, and all that stuff. But those pictures, if you ever wonder where those pictures came from, it came from the Empress.
Mm.
The map, there's a map that's circulating in online where it shows a Mexum. It's like a blue yellow map drawing. That map was the map he did. He actually did that map. And the story behind the map is that Sheikh Timothy Dingle Ill had a contest. And the contest was for someone to draw a map that reflected chapter 47 in the Holy Quran. And he won that contest. The original map ended up going to the Dingle Ill family. They ended up taking that, and then he redid it. So that what you see circulating is a picture of the replica of what he originally did. So I mean, there's so much to be said about him. He was on C-SPAN. He was on, you know, he was active. He was definitely active more. And to be that, you got to understand the that DVD, those DVDs that he had was like in the late 90s. I can't recall, or I don't even think I know of any more in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I say this respectfully, if it is, let me know who was on a lecture circuit. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
He was on a lecture circuit. He was going to New York and other places teaching. Now, around that time, you had other Moors who were not in the temple going on lecture circuits. And I say that to the point that one of the common things you hear people say is that these particular individuals, well, they were putting out the information. The Moors in the temple, they all stayed in the temple. He was out there. That's why I say that. And this is not to disrespect any other sheiks or anybody else. I'm just saying that's what I learned and why I have a level of respect for him, and I will always give him his honor. I will tell as many people about him as I can because he put in a lot of work, and I think that's why I was drawn to him. I think Allah put it where I had to be taught under him because I'm a person like you are. I'm about putting the work out. I want to teach the public about the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I'm doing a lecture at the end of this month, right?
Yes, sir.
And I've done a number of lectures. I want to take beyond the temple. I always will be, my home is the temple, but we got to extend the learning. And
Yeah.
that's what Jerome Graham Bay represents to me.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. And I must say, after watching the brother's videos, I know for a fact he was a very special brother.
Yes, sir.
And I love the opportunity to see the elders demonstrate, because what it does is it gives one a sense of presence. You see what I'm
Yes,
saying? And that within itself can empower an individual on their journey.
yes, sir.
So I appreciate you sharing that with us, brother, man.
Praise Allah.
We've been here about an hour and 35 minutes. We've been here a while already, brother, man. Before we close out, I just wanted to know if there's anything that you want to tell the listening audience, anything that you want to plug, you want to talk about upcoming events, you want to talk about products, you want to talk about books. You got anything that you would want to put in the minds of the people to be looking for? So and also put in my mind that I could be looking for, because I'm always checking in on a brother.
Yes, sir.
So if before we close out, please, talk to the people and express that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. First, again, thank you. It's an honor to be on your platform.
Praise Allah.
Inshallah, I hope to be on again, and I definitely want to say I would love to have you back on my platform as well, Masterminds with Brother Shemel, very soon. We did it once before. It was an honor to have you on, and I'd love to have you on again. For those who are interested in checking me out and getting my products, you can go to my website, www.shemel.com. That's www.shem-el.com. You can get my books. You can check out some videos, my podcasts. You can check it on there. Also on Spotify, I got the Masterminds of Brother Shemel. Of course, I got a YouTube channel, Shemel, where the videos at. Some of the videos we just talked about. Also, you can check me out on Facebook, Shemel. I will have a upcoming lecture that I've been advertising on Facebook. If you're in the Raleigh-Durham area, February 25th, I'm doing a lecture with a good friend, a brother of mine, Khalif Abiri. I will be giving a history presentation. I'm giving some unknown history or little known history about us as a people. Of course, I'm going to bring that nationality into it. And the brother, he's going to speak about community development. So that will be at the Cultivate Creative Cafe, 3004 Guest Road. If you're in that area, again, you can check me out on Facebook. I'm advertising it on Facebook, as well as other platforms. But that's pretty much it, brother. I'm going to be continuing the work, continuing my podcast, and hopefully I'll be doing some more speaking engagements for this year. But it's always working in the cause of Allah, and to uplift our people, uplift all humanity. Islam.
Islam, praise be to Allah, brother, man. And it's always an honor to speak with you, bro.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
To ground with you, brother, because as we know, when man looks in the face of man, he looks in the face of Allah.
Islam.
And especially when one has and emanates and projects the character said thereof. So it's always an honor, it's always a pleasure to build with you and to receive from you, brother man. Because every time I speak with you, your writings, the work that you have done, they're all inspiring, they're all productive. Um, and I pray, brother man, that you know even though this is we receive our flowers from Allah,
Yes,
you
sir.
know, Allah, the best of providers, and He is the one who truly rewards the believer. However, I think that it's pertinent that we learn to start giving the flowers to the people who deserve them while they're in the flesh, and let them know how much they're appreciated and how much they're um, appreciated and needed, brother man. Because this is not something we just want. This information is something that we need in this particular point in time, And I just want to continue to say honors and gratitude. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your work, and continue on in it. You know, and
Sir.
man, Allah is the Father of the universe, and
Absolutely.
and Drew Ali is His prophet.
Yes.
And as the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America says, a knowledge of thyself and thee, and He who created thee. What better knowledge is there to have? What better is there to know? So, man, you demonstrated well, and
Gratitude.
us here at Let's Think Podcast extend much love and success to Masterminds with Shemel, your
Thank
podcast, your platform, and it's always an honor to be on your platform. And I can't wait till it's my turn again.
you.
Um,
Sir.
uh, and I can't wait to have you back here. You know,
Thank
to
you.
continue to talk about your works and what you're doing in your respective area and whatever you're doing all in the states and wherever you may be, brother man. Um, this has been Let's Think Podcast. Um, with the Moorish Mastermind Shemel. I would like to extend my honors and my gratitude, my Islam to everybody that will watch,
Islam.
um, are watching, and I like to extend honors to my administration, my grand sheik and chairman, brother Lorenzo Porticel.
Islam.
Um, I like to extend honors to yourself and your administration,
Gratitude. Islam.
and all of those who will participate in this great comprehensive program of uplifting fallen humanity. I truly thank you for being on, beloved. And
Gratitude.
as I see, anticipate very much so your next time being here. And until then, I extend my Islams to yourself,
Islam.
all who are watching, will watch,
Yes, sir.
and let's continue in this great program. Praise be to Allah,
Praise Allah.
honors to His holy prophet, and honors to yourself and all here, there, and everywhere. Islam,
Islam. Islamism.
peace and love, beloved.
Peace and love. Islam.
Yes, sir.